Hi, I'm Vernon, and today I want to share 3 quiet but powerful signs that reveal when a man truly loves a woman, not in his words, but in his actions, especially after 60, when love takes on a deeper, steadier shape. You see, real love in our later years doesn't always come with fireworks. It's not loud or dramatic. It's found in small, sacred gestures, ones that speak louder than any grand declaration ever could. We've lived through the passion of youth, the quiet companionship of midlife, and now the kind of devotion that only time and experience can teach. And in that space, something becomes clear. The way a man loves changes, but the depth can grow far beyond what we ever expected. You might recognize these signs in your own life, or perhaps long quietly for them. Before the story unfolds, take a quiet moment to like and subscribe, not just for yourself, but to help these reflections reach others who may quietly need them. So let's explore together something I've witnessed in many good men over the years. They may not speak much of love, but they live it by keeping the one they love calm, even while their own heart trembles. Number 1. He shares his vulnerable truth. The first thing a man does only for the woman he truly loves is this. He shares his vulnerable truth with her. This moment marks a profound shift in his emotional landscape, where the walls he's carefully constructed over years begin to crumble. Now, I don't mean he simply tells her about his day or shares his opinions about the weather. I mean he opens the chambers of his heart that he's kept locked for decades. These sacred spaces hold his most intimate thoughts, the wounds that shaped him, and the hopes that keep him awake at night. He tells her about his fears, his regrets, his dreams that he thought were too late to chase. My dear friend Harold, whom I mentioned before, recently shared something beautiful with me. At 68, he fell in love with a woman named Grace. One evening, as they sat on her porch watching the sunset, Harold told her something he'd never told another soul, that he still dreams of writing a book about his father's war stories, but he's afraid it's too late, that no one would care about an old man's memories. His voice trembled as he spoke, decades of suppressed longing finally finding expression. Grace didn't dismiss his dream or offer false reassurance. She simply said, "Harold, your father's stories deserve to be told, and you deserve to tell them." Her response wasn't just supportive, it was transformative, validating not only his dream, but his worthiness to pursue it. 6 months later, Harold began writing, not because Grace pushed him, but because her response showed him that his deepest truths were safe with her. The ancient philosopher Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." When a man shares his vulnerable truth with a woman, he's not just revealing himself, he's creating space for both of them to begin again, together. This act of emotional nakedness becomes the foundation upon which authentic intimacy is built. This kind of sharing goes beyond mere conversation. It's what psychologist Dr. Brené Brown calls vulnerability armor removal. After decades of protecting ourselves, of learning to be self-sufficient, a man who truly loves will risk being seen completely. He understands that true strength lies not in impenetrable defenses, but in the courage to let another witness his humanity.
He might tell her about the mistakes that still haunt him, the child he once was, before life taught him to be guarded, or the dreams he's never dared to speak aloud. He shares these truths not to burden her, but because he trusts her with the most precious thing he has, his authentic self. In these moments of radical honesty, he offers her the gift of seeing him as he truly is. Does this sound like someone you know? Tell me in the comments. Have you experienced this kind of vulnerable sharing in your relationships? These moments of profound connection remind us that love's greatest power lies in its capacity to reveal us fully, fearlessly, and with infinite compassion. After opening his heart so bravely, how else might he honor the woman he loves? At this point, can you guess what the next sign might be?
Number 2, he creates sacred space for your dreams. Love, at its most generous, is the kind that makes room. And a man who loves you deeply will create that quiet, emotional space, not just for who you've been, but for who you still hope to be. He doesn't mock your dreams or measure them by time. He protects them, especially when you've stopped protecting them yourself. I once saw a woman in my neighborhood take up sculpture at 68. She said it felt like her hands had remembered something her heart hadn't dared to do. It's not just an anecdote. Research from the MacArthur Foundation confirms that pursuing new passions later in life keeps the mind sharp and the soul open. But here's the truth no study can fully explain. When someone believes in the version of you that still dares to begin, that belief becomes a quiet force, one that rewrites the story you thought was finished. I witnessed this beautiful truth with my neighbor Elizabeth. When she met Richard at that community art class, she confessed to him that she'd always wanted to paint landscapes but felt foolish starting at 64. Many people might have offered polite encouragement and moved on. But Richard did something extraordinary. He saw past her self-doubt to the artist yearning to emerge. He researched local plein-air painting groups, quietly purchased professional-grade supplies, and suggested they take weekend drives to scenic locations. But here's the beautiful part. He didn't do this to impress her or win her affection. He did it because he genuinely believed in her artistic vision and wanted to see it flourish. His actions spoke louder than any words of encouragement ever could. When Elizabeth's first painting turned out less than perfect, Richard didn't offer false praise or empty reassurance. Instead, he framed it and hung it in his kitchen, telling her, "This is where your journey begins." When she wanted to quit after a particularly challenging session, he simply said, "The canvas will wait for you when you're ready." He understood that dreams need patience, not pressure. This isn't about grand gestures or expensive gifts. It's about something far more precious, the gift of belief in her unlimited potential, regardless of age or circumstance. He becomes her witness, her cheerleader, and most importantly, her safe harbor when doubt creeps in during vulnerable moments of creative exploration. This sacred space manifests in countless ways. He might listen without judgment when she talks about techniques she wants to master. He might rearrange his schedule to support her creative pursuits. He might simply hold space for her artistic process without trying to fix, improve, or redirect it. His role becomes that of a loving guardian, protecting her journey from both external criticism and internal doubt. When a man truly loves,
He sees the woman not just as she is, but as she's still becoming. He understands that at 60, 70, or beyond, she's not finished growing, creating, or dreaming. He becomes a guardian of her possibilities, understanding that love's greatest achievement isn't possession, but liberation, freeing the beloved to become her most authentic, creative self. Beyond encouragement and belief, there's something even subtler, a kind of quiet choosing that speaks volumes without ever needing words.
Number 3, he chooses you in small moments. You won't find the strongest signs of love on greeting cards or anniversaries. They live in the little things, the ones a man does for her simply because he cares, even when no one else would know the difference. This isn't about standing tall beside her in crisis or applauding her in moments of triumph, though those things matter. No, what reveals the true depth of love is subtler than that. It lives in the quiet, everyday moments where choosing her isn't expected, but he does it anyway. Love shows itself in the choices no one sees, like lowering the volume on his favorite show because her voice matters more than the ending, or matching his pace to hers in the grocery store, not out of duty, but because her presence feels better than rushing ahead. It's in the way he sets aside efficiency to teach her how to use that new phone, even though he could have fixed it in seconds, choosing patience over pride and presence over speed. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." A man who truly loves lives this truth daily, not by chasing joy in grand adventures, but by honoring the everyday in sacred, intentional ways. And research agrees. The Gottman Institute, which has spent decades studying successful long-term relationships, emphasizes that enduring love depends not on dramatic expressions, but on what they call turning toward small bids for connection. These moments often appear ordinary from the outside, but inside the relationship, they're everything. He listens as if it's the first time she's told the story, even though he knows exactly how it ends. He offers help when her hands can't quite manage the jar, not to show strength, but to ease her burden. He shifts his own mood when he senses hers is low, not because he's responsible for her feelings, but because he respects them. These choices don't cost money, but they do cost something far more valuable: presence, empathy, and the kind of attention that says, even in this small moment, you matter. Sometimes love reveals itself in what we notice without trying. When Charles began spending time with Diana, he saw how she always chose decaf, not out of preference, but necessity. She told him caffeine unsettled her sleep. He didn't just hear it, he remembered. Now, many would have nodded and moved on, but Charles took it upon himself to find a better solution. He researched gentler alternatives and eventually found a small roastery that offered a Swiss water-processed decaf she might enjoy. One day, with no fanfare, he handed her a bag and simply said, "I thought you might like this better." Stories like this aren't just told, they're felt. Save it so it stays with you. And when someone you care about needs a quiet reminder that love still lives in small things, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. You never know whose heart it might gently reopen. It wasn't an anniversary, it wasn't Valentine's Day.
it was just another Tuesday. But Diana told me later it was that one gesture, that thoughtful bag of beans, that made her realize this man sees me, even in the small things. And in mature love, that's everything.
As we reach the end of our time together today, I want you to pause with me for a moment. Think about the 3 signs we've explored: sharing vulnerable truth, creating sacred space for dreams, and choosing love in small moments. These aren't behaviors that can be faked or performed temporarily. They emerge from something deeper, from a man who has learned that genuine love is not about possession or convenience, but about nurturing another soul's journey. You recognize these signs in your life, treasure them, not because they're rare, though they often are, but because they represent something sacred, the choice to love consciously, intentionally, and with the full awareness that time is precious. And if you haven't experienced this kind of love yet, don't despair. As the poet Rumi reminds us, what you seek is seeking you. The capacity for deep, authentic love doesn't diminish with age. It often deepens, enriched by experience and wisdom. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Have you experienced any of these signs in your own relationships? Or perhaps you've witnessed them in others? Your stories and insights help all of us understand the beautiful complexity of mature love. If today's reflections have touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel for more wisdom on love, relationships, and life after 60. Share this video with someone who might need to hear these signs. And remember, it's never too late for authentic love to find you. Until we meet again, may you recognize love in all its quiet, sacred forms, and may you be open to both giving and receiving the profound gift of choosing and being chosen in all the small moments that create a lifetime of meaning. And above all, may you never doubt that love still has gentle things to offer you. Thank you for spending this time with me. I'll see you in the next video.